Okay, this demo is on the grid widget, which is really the most important widget in the product. We're going to do an overview here. We're going to go over paging, filters, column groups, export, and the grid's interaction with other widgets as well as the database lock. And we'll do these largely in order, but we might jump around a little bit. So let's go into the product. We already have the grid pulled up. We're in a clean state, no filters applied. We have 300,000 items in our case. Let's start by explaining these numbers. The first number we'll talk about is the total number in the case, or the total number that's reactive to whatever filter you have applied. So right now we're looking at the entire case because no filters are applied. But if we apply a filter, now it's going to reduce down to the data size that is relevant to this filter. There are 152 URLs in this case. Of that, we have currently 100 showing in the grid, and we have pulled 100 in locally. So what's the difference between these two numbers? They both say 100. Well, this shows you what is currently in the grid, and this shows you what has been pulled from the database. Most of the time, they will be the same, except if you're interacting, let's say, with a widget. So let's remove this filter. Let's apply our picture filter, and we'll see how many pictures. There are 829 pictures in this case. And let's open up our thumbnail widget. And let's say we wanted to select this and all the way to here. Now you can see these numbers are different because in fact we've applied a local filter. So we only want to show 15 of the 100 items we've pulled into the case. This is also an example of how the grid interacts with the other widgets. When you do anything in the other widgets, it will manifest itself as a filter in the grid. In turn, it will show that document in the viewer. Not a very good example of a document to show in a viewer, but nonetheless, that was what we were looking on. We clicked in the, so if we have, let's do this. Let's load a 3-panel look. So let's say if we go like this, that goes into the grid, that goes into the viewer. Just that simple. All right, so let's close out of those. That's the situation, is the circumstance under which these two numbers will differ. Let's remove our filters, remove our database lock. And this just shows you how many items are checked. And to be clear, we support shift clicking for checking. And you can go ahead and hit this and uncheck all the items. This checks all the items that are showing in the grid. So if you click this, it will check the 100 you have here. Clear that. This would check all the items loaded here. And let's remove the filter. Excuse me, I already have the filter. I got to do this. And if we click it now, I wanted to show you this warning. If you have more than 10,000 items you might be about to perform an operation on, it will give you this warning. You probably shouldn't be checking more than 10,000 items. On my computer, on my system, and it's a pretty good system, I think it will crash when you do this. So it gives you that warning, tells you not to do it. And then obviously you can clear. You can come here to export the grid. It will export these 100 rows into a nice Excel document. Let's skip over the filters here. Let's talk about paging really quickly. This will page for you, so you can go to, page 15, for example, if you wanted to, and click return, and you'll jump ahead 15 increments of 100 in that case, and you can do back and forwards. This is the grid size. So if you do 1,000 and click return, we're now going to load 1,000 documents into this. And since we're on page 15, you see we start at sort of the 15,000 area. Let's go bring this back to 1. And it will bring us back to the first page, and it's again going to load 1,000 documents for us. The more rows you load, the slower it will be. The best workflow, the workflow I recommend for people is to keep this number as small as possible. 100's a pretty good number on my system, until I arrive at the data set I feel comfortable with, at which point I will pull it all in. So let's say we were filtering, we want to look at URLs. We filter, we notice, okay, look, we're down to 152. That's a totally manageable data set. I'm just going to pull the whole thing in. And then I will operate on this data however I see fit. Okay, let's keep it small though for the rest of the demo. Let's remove those filters. Okay, now this is for columns. We're showing all the loaded columns at this point. We can also show documents if we want. Click here on documents. The interesting thing to notice about these first 4 options is they're all effectively the same as far as the system is concerned. It just depends on what we show to you. In all cases, you are loading all loaded columns, and you can see there are quite a few of them. I believe there are about 64 of them or 65 or somewhere in that area. We need these because we use them to populate the widgets. If you're not interested in utilizing the widgets, first you should apply the widget suppression button, and then utilize the speed option. This will only pull in these 2. It's the only option that only pulls in these 2 columns, and it's wicked fast. So you can notice the difference on my system at 1,000 columns. Let's go do 1,000 with speed. It's almost instantaneous. Comes up to 1,000. If, however, we're doing all loaded or any of the other options, you're going to see there's a little bit more spinning to it, a little bit longer of a pause. Now, that might not be a big deal for you. It might be fine. Feel it out yourself. Finally, there is this column options. If you want to change the columns in here, you can go ahead and click here. It's not a great experience. It's slow to set up. There's a lot of computation going on. And generally, I recommend people don't even use it. I would tell you there's a permission associated with it. I would suggest you hide it from the users. And then you just create custom columns that fit their needs, so they never need to bother with this. The fact is there are over 1,000 columns, and they're overwhelming. Even I don't know what they all do, and trying to learn them or find the column you want is somewhat overwhelming. So that's why I recommend people just utilize custom columns, column sets, to get just specifically what they or their users are going to want, and then leave it at that. Okay, a couple more important things to note. One is sort of coming all the way around the horn here. There's this 50 number here. Right now, the grid size is set to 30. That, I think, is the best sort of marriage of speed and functionality. If, however, you have a very large screen and a lower resolution, let's do something that's at least slightly, okay? And you refresh in this scenario, you're not actually going to see, you're not going to use the whole space. And that's suboptimal for a number of reasons. One is the grid thinks you're using the whole space. So look, it stopped at 92, when the reality is the data set goes to 100. So that's a problem. So to solve that, we have this option of just clicking 50. It will reposition your grid to utilize 50 rows instead of the 30. If that's not enough for you, you have one really large monitor. So anyway, leave it at 30 in the 30 mode if you can, because I think you'll have the better experience. Okay. All right, you can move columns if you want. They will stay for your session, but if you log out and log back in, they will revert back to where they initially were. All right, now let's talk about filtering. That's the last but probably the most important topic with regard to the grid. You can apply filters here. MBR, I believe there are 5 that are reactive to this, and you will see it's going to, first it started with the yellow thing here. It was applying a local filter, but locally we only had one record that had MBR in it. Then it converted that filter to a database filter, which shows up here. Object name contains MBR is what we're searching on here. And it shows the filter appeared up here. If I had database lock on, and I now search on Cambria, it's going to just apply a local filter. You can still see the database filter is still just this one. And we have a new icon here showing us that a local filter is applied. So let's go ahead and clear that. Let's remove our database lock. Let's clear that. And we're back to a flat state. All right, now, the last thing to show regarding filters is this and, or and. These apply to the column. If you want to do an and, let's do that filter we just did again, and do MBR. And now we want it to do Cambria. So now what we've actually done is filtered on MBR and Cambria. So there you go, and we have a subset. If, however, let's clear this filter. Let's just clear the Cambria one here. Now we're just going back to the MBR filtered state. If we turn it to OR, and we do Cambria, this will return at least that same number, maybe more. You can see we got back, I can't remember whether these were in the original set or not, but in any event, it's the OR of those two versus the AND. Okay, so that's within a column. Now, how do you do it across columns? Across columns is always ANDed by default, but you can, in fact, apply an OR across columns. So let's do, if we do AND here and we do registry values and we filter, this is going to be the subset. We're going to have less documents. We went from 6 to 5. However, if we switch this to an OR, let's go ahead and remove this filter and do that same exact thing with an OR. Now we're going to end up with at least this 5 plus, in this case, a lot more. So you can see that's the difference between AND and ORs. Note that this automatically switched back to AND. It will always switch back to AND because other widgets utilize it and they assume a default state of AND. If you want to use OR, just click it to OR and go ahead and apply, and it will do the OR for you. All right, I think that's basically the entire grid. Hopefully that was pretty clear. It's really important. This is a longer video than I want to make most of the videos, but it is it's critical you understand the grid because it, again, effectively drives everything else. Okay, perfect. Oh, actually, excuse me. No, before I end, there are a few other things I wanted to show you here. Let me show you with the viewer. As you navigate in the grid, it will show that document in the viewer if there is something to show. Okay, there's something, right? If you want actually to load the document into the viewer, you click that, and it will load the document directly into the viewer. This might be a weird document. I don't know how large this is. All right, let's abandon that effort. Let's try to do this one. Hopefully this is a smaller document. These are registry file documents, so it's not totally surprising to me that it won't load these. But if we had a document that was a better document, it would load into the native viewer. But we got some junky documents here. Anyway, that's that, and then let's talk about this other button. Let's close all this. Any document we select this for will locate the file, and it's already done, but you see it's sort of navigating the, if these weren't open, okay, good, we found a few that weren't open. It's opening the path it needs to ultimately find the directory in which this file lives, and it found it. So that's what that button does. This just marks it privileged. There's also a right-click manager, which I showed you quickly before, and you can just play around with that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Anyway, that is in fact the grid. I'm going to end it there. Hopefully that was helpful. Thanks a lot.